Hi guys, and welcome to this video. I hope you're all doing well. For today's case, guys, we are going to be going to Greece, and this was a case that when I researched it, it really shook me up, in the sense of there is a situation that could have been, you know, not as dramatic as the outcome was, but no one did anything, and this is what the problem is in this case. And I'm just going to put out a disclaimer that we are going to be talking about the death of a child, so please be aware of that before watching this video today. So today, guys, we are going to Greece for this particular case, and some of you guys may remember I did another video on my channel about a lady called Marika Mihalovic, who was a Roma gypsy lady in Serbia who gave birth, and the doctor actually killed her baby during the labour. And I was so outraged is not even the right word, it's beyond outraged by that case when I researched it, that I actually thought, okay, are there other Roma gypsy cases where the Roma gypsy community were mistreated and these cases have got no public traction, and they've just been sort of brushed under the carpet? So I started to research to see if there was more cases like this that I could try and bring to light. And I came across this particular case, guys, of this little 8-year-old Roma gypsy girl called Olga. So as I said, guys, Olga was a little girl living in Greece from a Roma gypsy community. I honestly didn't know, guys, that there was such a big Roma community actually in Greece. This was kind of the first I'd heard about it. So she was living in a kind of settlement, I want to call it, so where there's a whole, community of Roma gypsies essentially. And for some reason, Olga had wandered off out of the settlement, and she'd ended up 2 kilometers further down the road. So she's ended up in front of this kind of warehouse. I'm not too sure what the warehouse was actually constructing or producing, but it was a warehouse on quite an industrial scale. She's ended up outside the warehouse, and for some reason, Olga has decided to wander inside the warehouse. So essentially, there was a very heavy metal gate, probably weighing about 2 tons, which is probably more than an elephant weighs, to be honest, that was in the process of closing. And this man's gone through the gate while the gate's closing, and Olga's also ran through the gate while it's closing. But for some reason, Olga decided she wanted to come back outside. She didn't want to stay in the warehouse. So as the gate is starting to close again, now it's almost closed, Olga's decided to go back through this heavy metal gate. As she's now gone through the gate, it's suddenly closed on her, so on her back, and her face, the front part of her body is facing a wall, and she's now jammed between this 2-ton heavy metal gate and the wall essentially. And at that point, I mean, I would think, guys, that, it's a warehouse, there's CCTV everywhere. There should be someone, right, who is going to see this and release the child from this, from this jam, the jam that she's in between the metal gate and the wall. Now, for this next part of the video, guys, I'm going to go through a very specific timeline of events where I'm going to try to actually give you the exact times when this case was happening, as in by the minutes, okay, because it's very important for this particular case. So the time when Olga's got trapped in between this heavy metal gate and the wall, it's around 5:30 p.m. For 20 minutes, Olga is stuck between the two, and she's struggling to get free. Obviously she's an 8-year-old child. Even an adult would struggle to get free, but obviously an 8-year-old child doesn't have the strength of an adult. And this gate is crushing her back, right, her spine. So you can see that she's physically moving. She's struggling to breathe because it's compressing her chest, etc., and her back. And so for 20 minutes, she's moving about and struggling to get out. And at that point, when we've reached around that 20-minute mark, there is a warehouse worker that goes past Olga. This is now around 5:50 p.m. and just literally walks past and does nothing. And when I say the warehouse worker does nothing, guys, I don't mean he's walked past, hasn't seen Olga. I mean, he's walked past, he's actually turned his head, so he's turned it to Olga, so he's looking at her, and then he just turns his head back and walks past. And then about a minute or so later, so now it's 5:51 p.m, he walks back past Olga in the other direction and goes, through some other door into the warehouse. At 5:55 p.m, guys, so this is about 5 minutes after the first employee has gone past Olga 2 times, another employee goes past at 5:55 p.m. and again he's watching Olga struggle and then just looks at her and walks off again. At 5:57 p.m, the gate now gets released. Suddenly someone's opened the gate and Olga drops to the ground. So at that point she'd been trapped approximately 27 minutes, so since 5:30 between the gate, right? 27 minutes that little girl had been crushed by that 2-ton metal gate. At 5:57 p.m, 2 warehouse workers approach Olga. So she's now, on the ground. We don't know at this point if she's literally dead or alive, but supposedly she's still alive at this point, but obviously in a complete state. Her spine's been crushed and everything. So 2 workers approach her and they sort of look at her and then they just walk off again. Now, this next timeline in this case is very interesting. At 6:05 p.m, a car drives past Olga and other employees come out of this warehouse, and apparently there was an instruction from the higher management of the warehouse that they are now to vacate the actual warehouse, the warehouse essentially, and that's the order given, but nothing in regards to assisting or helping Olga. At this stage, guys, I forgot to mention where the car's driven by and everything. The heavy metal gate has now closed on Olga again. So although she's now fallen on the ground, she's slumped, and at that point it still said that she is breathing and alive, obviously in a very serious state, but she's supposedly still alive. This heavy metal gate closes on Olga again and crushes her. Guys, I just need to take a deep breath at this point, because even though I read about this case over a month ago, I just can't. I literally just can't, right? So this heavy metal gate closes on Olga again, crushes her against the wall again. Now time is passing. Olga's been crushed between the gate and the wall, on and off, since 5:30. Now it's around 6:05 p.m. And then at this stage, it's still around 6:05 p.m. A factory worker comes. I have to retain my calm here, guys. A factory worker comes, like a warehouse worker, comes, and he kicks Olga with his foot. Like, he prods her with his foot. Honestly, guys, the level of disrespect in this case is just absolutely unbelievable. And then a truck enters the warehouse, car parking area at 6:31 p.m. and apparently has seen Olga again. And at that point, there is a discrepancy in this case as to whether the heavy metal gate closed on Olga around 6:31 p.m. or whether it closed on her around 6:05 p.m. However, one thing is certain is that the gate did close on Olga twice in this case. So anyway, this truck's come in to the parking area of the warehouse at 6:31 p.m, seen Olga again, and just driven past her. Now, apparently, after 70 minutes, that's 1 hour and 10 minutes, guys, an ambulance service arrives. As you guys have probably understood by this point, Olga is no longer with us, because after 20 minutes, her spine had already been crushed. She was barely breathing. She was just about alive after 20 minutes. We're now talking 70 minutes after this initial event started to happen. Of course, Olga's not going to be alive. The ambulance has taken 70 minutes to get there. And even then, I'm thinking, at what stage does someone even be bothered to call an ambulance for this child? It's said that Olga died of suffocation and internal bleeding because her spine was completely crushed. Now, some people, guys, in regards to this case, have said that unbelievably it's the fault of her mother and grandmother that this happened to Olga, because they weren't paying enough attention to watch the child at the time when she wandered off. However, let's be clear, there is a big difference between letting your child wander off and your child actually being killed through the negligence of non-assistance to a person in danger. They're two completely different things, right? So in this case, it's very, very clear that this is a case of non-assistance to a person in danger. And a lot of people have said that this is a racially aggravated murder case because, you know, Olga was a Roma gypsy little girl. And you guys can see how I've outlined the timeline of events very specifically for this case, that there are multiple opportunities where something could have been done. I recounted this case, guys, to one of my work colleagues, and at every stage when I gave her the timeline of events, she was like, what the hell? Because even if you are not someone who's a warehouse worker, you don't understand heavy machinery, you don't understand how to operate the gate, you clearly understand that, okay, what would you do in the first instance if you saw a little girl trapped like that? You'd maybe try to pull her from the gate. If you can't because you're not strong enough, you're trying to find someone to unblock the gate. If you can't do any of that, you're going to call 999. You're going to call an ambulance immediately if you can't do anything else. And then you will try to locate some warehouse workers, someone to come and assist you to try and dislodge the child from the gate. Those are the first 4 things personally that would come to mind for me, even though I wouldn't know, you know, how, you know, the map kind of area, like how the warehouse is, how it's mapped out, anything. You would think to just do those 4 basic standard things to help this child. In the UK, guys, honestly, it doesn't matter whether the child, irregardless of the UK actually, it doesn't matter whether the child is black, white, blue, orange, purple, green. No one cares about the colour or race or ethnicity of a child. If a child is in danger and you walk past that child, as an adult, you have a responsibility legally and as a human actually to try to assist that child, okay? Just to be clear. And honestly, I don't know what adult who should be in their right mind would just keep walking past like that, have a chat, pick up their phone, you know, go and chat with someone else, prod the child with their foot. I mean, like, honestly, like, it's just unbelievable. And in this case, guys, because it's over a month ago, I started actually researching this case. I researched so many articles. I even watched Greek CCTV footage on a Greek news channel in Greek, even though I only speak French and English, to see if there was like a prosecution for these warehouse workers who didn't assist Olga. And as far as I could see, there was no criminal conviction for them, which I honestly is, there is a level of, I mean, I don't even know what to say to you guys. I don't even know what to say to you. While I was researching this case about Olga, guys, there were so many Roma gypsy cases that I came across where children were murdered or tortured by people who were outside of the Roma community. There were so many criminal cases perpetrated against this community. And the list, like, it was just going on and on and on. And at that point, I thought, gosh, like, I need to do more, like, bring to like more cases like this on my channel, because I think there is a real level of where people can't comprehend how this community is treated. They're always seen as, you know, the outsiders, that they don't behave well in society, that this and this. But there is such a level of racism and disgustingness perpetrated to this community that this is the outcome of it, that you get children who have lost their lives needlessly. You know, Olga may have got trapped inside the gate, and after 20 minutes liberated, ambulance could have been called. The child, you know, in intensive care, needs hospitalisation, etc. But she could have survived. very easily had this been dealt with after 20 minutes. But 70 minutes later, no one gave a shit. And this is just not acceptable, guys. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to do my international true crime channel, to bring cases like this to the forefront so that things like this never ever happen again, because it's unacceptable. And these cases, they're put one day in the news abroad and then they completely disappear. No one gives a shit, no one cares, and that is absolutely not acceptable.